Welcome to selfdiscoverymedia.com, where we discover the communities that are making a difference in the lives of others. Our self-discovery is something we are all making on our life's journey. Here you will find the people that will be your guidance, that will be your inspiration, that will be there for you in support on your journey of life. Do enjoy. Our next show is... Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Their Story Matters right here on selfdiscoverymedia.com. I am your host, Sarah Troy, and my guest today is Rebecca Joy. She lives in Costa Rica, lucky girl. But this beautiful lifestyle that she has right now, which is a great deal of helping people through their journey of life with hypnosis and NLP and EFT and massage, etc. But before she found her path, where did she begin? Well, she began living in a cult along with her family. And at some point she realized, I don't want to live here anymore. I want to leave and have my own life and make my own decisions. But what did that entail? She had to leave a life that's all she'd ever known. And she was unprepared for the life that was to come. And it didn't have a smooth road. There was a lot that she had to learn. But one of the biggest lessons that she learned was placing that value on her own choice, on her own life, on her own decision making. So as she stepped out of the cult and into her own life, she had to step back into herself to discover who she was, where she was going, what she wanted, and who she was, which is a big one. Welcome to the show, Rebecca.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you for inviting me.
Now, the cult life, of course, when we watch it on TV, it's always villainized, and it's always people being there, held against their will, people brainwashed, no individual decision-making, you know, kind of basically one person pulling the strings. Was it like that for you?
Yeah, actually, when people are in a cult, they don't even know that they're in a cult.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And that means even the lives that we're having, we think that our life is normal. It's usually not normal. It's what we're comfortable with. So when I was in the middle of it, like they would tell us things like, oh, you can leave anytime you want, you know, but if I were to leave, there's no place to go to. They close all contacts in the outside world. So where are you supposed to go?
Yeah.
But nevertheless, when you're in the cult, when you're in the middle of something, the first thing you think is like, no, I'm not in the cult. This is of my choice. But when you get out, then you realize the whole thing is totally crazy.
Yes. Well, it's rather, you know, like a child growing up in a household. You know, you think the way you're being brought up is just the way it is everywhere.
Yeah.
You don't know
exactly.
there's anything different, right? Until you expose that. So if you were in this cult and everything was just, you know, normal for normal cultish day life, why did you want to leave? What was going on there that you felt, I don't belong?
Misery.
One word, that's it.
I was so miserable. And it was kind of interesting because, you know, in the cult, you're brainwashed to believe that's what I'm supposed to do. From the day I was born till I was a young adult, that's all I knew. And so, you know, to leave, it was like there was so much guilt in it. And, you know, it's was a religious cult. Most cults have some kind of a religious point of view. So you're kind of stuck to believing one way. And so there was a battle in the mind, you know, like, I hate this. I don't want to be here. You know, this is horrible. I'm in so much pain. I don't know if I would have used the word pain because at the time I didn't even know how to feel.
Right.
They were so controlled with the emotions.
Mm-hmm.
So I couldn't identify the pain, but it was so much pain.
Yes. Now you know what it is.
Yeah. And there was a battle in the mind, you know, like, okay, God, I'm so sorry that I want to leave. I don't want to be here. Please forgive me for my you know, sins. You know, like it's a guilt in the mind, you know, battle that you have to kind of figure out how you're going to be able to do it with, you know, how you're going to do it even though you feel guilty leaving.
Right. Yes. You know, was there an expectation that by a certain age you should be married and have more children to keep the cult going?
No, not so much that. It wasn't about being married and stuff. It was more like, you're giving yourself to God. I was the second generation. There's the first generations who joined the cult, and it was during the 1968.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a small group, and they got bigger and bigger during the hippie era, because
Mm-hmm.
at the time they just wanted looking for the answer, the utopia of,
Yeah.
way of thinking. And then I was born a few years later. Well, say not that time. My parents, one joined in around 1969, and the other one was 1972 or something, and a few years later
Right.
than I was
Right.
born.
So literally all the life that you've ever known. Now, here
Yeah.
you are, knowing you're miserable, feeling
Mm-hmm.
guilty for wanting to leave.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, there must have been, a lot of love around you. But then, how would you know, whether it was real love, not love, because you had nothing to base it from? You
Yeah,
know,
well, that's true. The way our mind is, we only know what
yeah,
we have inside of ourselves.
yes,
But what was funny was, I mean, this when I talk about this is like when I was more a teenager.
hmm,
Everybody talked about love. Oh, I love you. Oh, I love you.
yes,
I love you. But there was no love. It was all judgment. There's
ah,
something wrong with you. So it was a very confusing word of what love was.
mm. Yeah, love the rules, obey the rules, and if you fall out of
Yeah,
that,
and
then
that's not
you're
love.
yeah, no, no, and and if you have a thought of your own, you're going against God's will.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and that is kind of religion, per se, and this is obviously not what God wanted us to have. This was, you
Yeah.
know,
I
this was
agree with you.
the human doctrine, and it's a way of keeping people in control. So
Absolutely. 100%.
and that's the problem with religion. Should be your relationship with God, and if you go into a house of God, that is only to extend and camaraderie with the other energies of love, because God
Uh-huh.
is love.
God
And
is love. Yeah.
any time that there is a but, or a condition attached to that,
Yeah.
then
That's a
then
perfect
it's a
description of
question,
it.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah. I know I wouldn't survive very well in there. Um,
It was rough. It was real rough.
always been a
It was,
bit too defiant for things like that. But how? That you were going out to nothing. You didn't even know what was out there, because all you knew your own little world. You know, um, Finally need the courage to say, I'm going. What
mhm.
is the reaction
You
from
don't think
everybody?
about courage though at the time. You can see
Right.
now it was courageous to
Yes.
do that. And I'm not the only one. There's a lot.
Right.
There's other people from my generation who've left, and their stories are just amazing. But we're telling about my story, okay?
Yes.
But yeah, you don't think about courage at the moment. You're feeling guilt, and you're feeling like, I'm doing this because I have to, because I'm just feeling so much misery that
Mm.
I have to do this. But later
Um,
on, you realize, wow, what
yeah.
did I do? What have I done?
But do they kind of understand you're miserable, or they just can't comprehend why you're miserable?
Well, what they would do is that they would, like, you think about this, is like so crazy. But okay, so anything you would communicate through letters a lot of times. They didn't have emails.
Mm.
Later on, they had these, before emails. They had a way of communicating. I don't remember what they called it before emails, but
Snail mail.
but they had that. So people, well, what I remember most of the time was they would write with people that they care about, whether your family, if you're away from your family, or friends, or people like that. I never really had friends, but it was people that you knew,
Hmm.
because we always moved. The longest time that I ever remember was being in one place for 2 years. The average was a few months to a year and a half. That was like,
So
the average.
you were very much like either the nomads, or the carnies, that the caravans that are constantly
Yeah, well,
moving from one to
I mean, okay, when I was in the United States, when I was a little younger, we were actually in a trailer. And that time I was actually with our family for 5 years. That was the longest where our family were together. We were in a trailer, and we would travel on different parts of the United States and Mexico. Mexico was like my favorite place to go to. It was such an amazing experience.
because they're so
But then we
alive.
went to though. It was just really cool that the local people became
Mm-hmm.
friends and they take us to these amazing places. It was really amazing. I was 7 years old at the
Yes. An
time.
introduction to what goes on outside.
Yeah, I guess you could say it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but nevertheless, that was the longest time that we had our family together. And then we went to Japan when I was 9 years old. I was actually trying to calculate the exact time. I think I was 9 years old, maybe 10, but I think it was 9. And you know, leaders wanting to take my dad to go to this place. They would move us different places, and that's where we were always moving. And
Mm-hmm.
even before we went on the trailer, we were always moving too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'm kind of forgetting the question and you're asking.
I mean, that is a point, because one kind of thinks a cult is in a compound, but you were like a religious traveling cult, trying
Well,
to
then we went
convert
to,
people.
yeah, that did happen.
Mm-hmm.
There's some interesting stories with that too. But when we went to Japan, we would move to different homes, and the homes were a big amount of people. I think the longest, I can't remember how many people in some of the big homes, but definitely 150 people once we were in Nagoya,
Mm.
and then another one that was outside of Tokyo. That might have been even more, but I don't remember. It was huge. It was huge. Um,
Just a question here. How old were you when you finally had your own bedroom?
hmm. I have to think about that. I think when I left, I think, yeah, I
Never to
think what
have
I
your
can
own
remember.
space. We were talking about space before we went on to the show and how we need that space
Maybe
sometimes.
that's why I love my
Yeah,
space.
exactly.
Yeah.
Because it's you grew up constantly in crowds.
Yeah. At 26 years old, I got my own apartment, and that was my first. It was such a beautiful freeing
Mm,
feeling that I
hmm
had. Yeah.
So you've moved around the world with this religious cult, and
Mhm.
we're converting. And this kind of reminds me of a movie. Come Sunday. It's a true story. It's on Netflix, and it's a black pastor of the come to Jesus type religion, and he has a huge following, black and white, huge following, and but everything is if you haven't come to Jesus, you're going to go to hell. That's the basis of the religion, and it didn't matter who you were. And he was watching Rwanda, the travesty in Rwanda, and watching all these children being slaughtered and saying, but this, they haven't had a chance to come to Jesus. They're not going to go to hell. And God wouldn't do that to them. And when he brought it up with his congregation, they all turned against him. So
Mhm.
the kind of religion you were in, was it kind of quite fanatic in its belief?
Yeah. I don't know exactly the was it a movie or a series?
It's a movie.
It's a
Very,
movie.
I think you probably would relate to it in a lot of ways of the control,
Yeah.
and the dogma of that church,
Uh-huh.
and it
Yeah.
is about what I say goes, and there is no variation. Yeah,
Yeah.
and with how he turned away from it because of it, because he didn't see the truth
Yeah.
there. But it's
Yeah, I remember when I was in Japan, I was like that. I was like, going out there and having to sell things in the name of Jesus, and
mhm,
it would help us with the organization, but also to you know, preach, the gospel of what they believed in. And I questioned that inside of my mind, like, why is that? Like, okay, what if a baby dies? Are you going to go to
yes,
hell? It doesn't make
yes,
any sense. Or what about these, you know, Buddhists or
mhm,
people from another country that they didn't have that chance? How could they be judged that way? So I definitely questioned as a kid, but it wasn't somebody that I could really talk to about
right,
it at the time.
right. No, certainly not within the fold. And when you
Yeah.
look at it, there are a lot of religions say, and my religion is the only religion, my God is the only
Hmm.
God. And
Yeah.
really what it is, it's your interpretation of what God is,
Oh yeah, for
right?
sure. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the thing is, we can invite people to
Hmm.
see it from our perspective, but we have
Yeah.
no right to
Yeah,
condemn people if
absolutely.
they don't. And so,
Or where do we have a right to think that we're right?
right, exactly.
Even that, how
Yes,
do we know? I
yes.
mean, we can share. Like I've had a really deep emotional journey after I left to try to find peace in my life. Well, I wasn't looking for peace, I was looking for love, but in the process peace came.
Yes, yes, yes.
You know, but
Peace is love.
yeah, well, I was looking for, a romantic love because
Yeah.
I never felt love in the
Mm,
cult. And so I wanted to feel love inside of me. And
mm,
it was very painful. Any person that I was close to when I left, it was
mhm.
very confusing. And my book talks a lot about that.
Right, yes.
Yeah. But what was I saying about love?
Mhm,
That, what was saying, love, peace. Oh, yeah. So I was looking for love, but in the process, peace is what I really got, because love,
mm,
and that's what you're saying.
yeah, yes,
Real love that's within ourselves is peace. You're
yes,
right. Yeah.
yeah. No, I mean, I know the Amish, they give the kids a choice. They can go out into the world for a year and then they have to come back. Or if they don't choose to come back after that year, that's it, they're excommunicated. I mean, how was it for you when you said, I'm going? How did you go? You had no money. You didn't know where to go. What did you actually do? I could kind of see you with a stick with a little handkerchief thing on the end of it, kind of walking out
Yeah.
there.
So my mind was made up that I was going to leave, but I didn't know how.
Right.
And I have a chapter in my book about it, which doesn't go into the details into the future, all that stuff. I gave a little bit of details on that one. And basically, um, so one of these cult people had to bring their, how do I say this? Okay, these two cult people, the couple that I was staying at their place in Miami, they were going to taking their brother, who are not cult people, but of course they didn't say they were cult. I don't know how to
Yeah.
explain this
Yeah.
exactly. They were cult people, but they didn't know that they were cult people.
You're right.
And they were inviting their brother, who was from Brazil, and they needed another female to go to hang around. So I was like, oh yeah, let me get out of here, because
Mm-hmm.
you're always at the home. You never go anywhere. You don't go out and party. You don't meet people.
Mm-hmm.
You don't do those kind of things. But this is an opportunity to go out. And in the process, short story was, there was a band, and I started talking to the band, and he asked for my number, but I didn't have a number because the number is a secret number,
Right.
And at that time they had emails. And so I gave him my emails. He thought it was strange, which it was, but that's the only way to communicate. We started communicating, and that was my way to get out, but I knew it wasn't enough. And so I did talk to my dad about it. And that's exactly what I told him, the story about the Amish. I said, they have an opportunity to get out. You never gave me an opportunity to go out, to go see if this is what I want. I want to see what's out there.
Yes.
And so he was like, well, and my dad didn't have the full power of it, but he knew a lot of people outside.
Mm-hmm.
And so I could possibly stay at another place or do something. I had it was a possible way to get out. And so, I talked to my dad about it. I said, please just give me a year. Let me see what's out there. I want to see if this is what I want, And he said, okay. He said, all right, well, he gave me a few options. Not a place. How did I stay? I can't remember how it worked exactly, but how I had to get his permission about that, because I needed to have a way out if necessary.
Right.
If I needed support, because if this were to work out with this guy, which is that exactly happened for 2 months.
Yes. It was your exit strategy.
It was my ticket. It didn't last long,
Yeah.
but at least it was a way to kind of jump out and to say
Yes. Yeah. Right into the deep waters. Yes.
into this world of
Yeah.
confusion.
Right. And straight into a band of music. I mean, yes. I mean, there could have been a gentle thing, but no, you went straight into the deep waters. So, but I mean, that's
Yeah.
I think kind of the way to do it sometimes, because you either sink or you swim, and if you swim,
Oh,
then
I remember what happened. I remember now. Okay, so when I started communicating with this guy on the phone, back and forth at this home that I was staying, they said to me, who are you talking to? And I was just like, just somebody. And he goes, was it that guy you met at the bar when they, I was at the third party to meet, everything? And I said, yes, you can't talk to him anymore, and that's where I went and talked to my dad to ask,
mm,
because I realized if I was going to stay in that home, I'd be stuck there for
right.
I'd never have that opportunity. So
So he kind of agreed to the year, but when that year came and went, what are you allowed to still see your family, or are you excommunicated?
no, no, all my family has left actually, in all
Uh,
different timings.
right.
I was actually the third person who left. My younger sister, she left first. My younger brother, he left second, and I was the third. Yeah. I had a 5-year-old child, so it was a little more difficult for me.
Mm, yes.
And then
Yes.
they were all single, so it was a little easier move. I was a single mom with a 5-year-old child, so it
Did
was
you
a
take your
little.
child with you?
Oh yeah, of course.
Mm, yeah. Yeah.
There's no other. He was all I had.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And obviously, whoever you had the child with, love wasn't based there, whatever was around there, because if there was that love, you wouldn't be wanting to leave.
Yeah, can you answer that again? Can you say that again? I kind of missed that. Wasn't able to hear
The
that.
father of the child, if there had truly
Oh,
been love there, you wouldn't be seeking love. So, you wouldn't want to
yeah.
leave.
Well, we never lived together. It was such a piece of word f up
Yes.
f up situation in the cult that it's hard to even describe it as that. He also was a second generation. He was born into it as
Hmm.
well, and there was a lot of, we never really lived together. We just, it's a long story with that.
Yeah, yeah, just the exploration, and here's the little one. But I mean, obviously for your little one, the adjustment, a kid will follow their parents, and if the parents are happy, the kid will be happy. And of course, obviously you were up and down quite a bit initially, a couple of months
Yeah.
with the band guy, but then, from there, where do you go? What do you do? What do you do about a job? What kind of schooling have you had? Do
Oh
you have
yeah.
credentials? All of
Oh
that,
yeah. Yeah.
even a social
That was.
security number.
Yeah, well, that's really funny because that's one thing is the Social Security. Most people, when you're like, by the time you're 16, 18
Uh-huh.
years old, you knew the number. And when I finally left, I didn't even know my Social Security number.
Mhm.
I had to, all of a sudden, I had to remember my number. I was just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Didn't
the
know how to
real
have a
world.
bank account, didn't know how to open a bank account.
Right.
You don't know
Yeah.
anything when you get out of
Yeah.
the, that world.
In a lot
But
of ways,
yeah,
it's like somebody who comes, a refugee from another country. You know,
yeah, it could be in a way.
they have nothing.
Except they may have a good foundation when they're young, whereas I didn't have
Yeah.
that. I mean,
Yeah.
in some ways, I had a foundation. Like, I knew my parents loved me. It's
Yes.
just not the way that a child would want to be loved.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Kind of their faith came first, and it was love under
Yeah.
that umbrella. Yeah.
And how
And
the cult is training people, whatever the cult leaders are telling, they have to follow.
right.
You don't have
Exactly.
your parents to support you.
So your parents are out now,
Oh yeah, yeah.
right? And have you had discussions with them? Because obviously they spent a great deal of their lives in that as adults, like they chose to go
Yeah.
into it. Now being out, what's their perspective of it now?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't even blame my parents because my mom, she was 18 years old. She
Yeah.
had problems at home. What can an
Yes.
18-year-old really know?
Yeah.
My dad, he was 22. I mean, he was a little older, but still, I mean, what 22, what a
Yeah.
22-year-old is capable of doing.
Right.
I forgive them for that. And I don't think they really intentionally did that,
Yeah.
but there was a lot of anger that I had to work through with
Yes, exactly. Exactly. But
that.
now they're out of it. How are they seeing life from a different perspective?
So my mom, it was very hard for her, like what she had done to her children. And my dad, his personality is more like, he wants to be happy and everything's positive all the time. And that's that part of me is I don't follow that anymore of just being positive,
Yeah.
everything's so perfect. I want to be authentic,
Yeah.
you know. But I have a good relationship with my dad now. It was hard at first, but I have a
Mhm.
good relationship with him now. So at first, when I would talk about, we were in a cult, he goes, "Don't say that. That's not a cult." Like in the first
Mhm.
few years, it was like a
Yes.
lot of resistance, and we'd
Yeah.
fight about it, And I think it was probably like maybe 3 or 4 years ago, he finally said to me, he goes, yeah, he called the word a cult, and I was just like, oh, he did
Finally woken up.
it. Yeah, he came. I guess he came to a realization
Yeah,
in his own
yeah.
way.
And maybe, that's how people get caught up in cults. They don't realize it's a cult. It's a calling.
Mm-hmm.
It's a
Exactly.
community,
It,
and, they just don't kind of call it this other word. What you're talking about, it's a place of love, and so that,
yeah, it's fake. It's
yeah.
all fake. And in my journey, how I see it now is that people would I used to ask me like a lot, like, well, how do people join a cult? Well, I always say, well, I can't say for sure because it wasn't something I joined.
Yeah,
It was something I was
born
born
into.
into. Yeah, but I believe it's people who are not whole, don't see the wholeness of themselves, so they have to go outside of themselves to feel worthy or feel purpose or whatever. But it's all power comes within ourselves, and
Yeah,
that's why people need to find that. If you want to make sure that you're not into a cult, don't hate something, don't
right.
resist things, just find the wholeness that we have within ourselves.
And that's, that is the journey of life, isn't it?
Yeah.
That is the self-discovery of, who am I? What am I here to do? What is the meaning of life to me? And what is my
Yeah.
contribution? And that's how
Yeah.
we explore life in that discovery. And for you, knowing that this cult was not it for you, it was stifling
Mm-hmm.
you, you were, it was for you, I think, a survival. If I don't go, I'll probably perish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I'm not going to be able to live. I will never be able to function myself. Because yeah, I don't know how to describe this so much misery in myself. Like there
Mm.
was so
Well,
much
there was so
that
much
I.
being suppressed.
Oh yeah, for
You weren't
sure.
allowed to express who you were or anything. You
Oh
had to
yeah.
follow the orders, which is, again, the religious. You must
Yeah.
follow, duty
Yeah.
bound to the God. And
Yeah.
God forbid you should have a private thought, or you should have an expression of self.
Oh yeah. There's okay, so the cult leader, his name was David Berg, and I never met him. And the only people who actually met him was the people who joined in the very, very beginning.
Hmm.
And everything else he went up and left and hid because he had his fears of everything. So he would write and he would send it to all the followers, and we would listen to it and follow it, whatever he had to say. That's pretty amazing that somebody can actually do that pretty in a horrible way.
No, well, I mean, like, look at some of the most horrific leaders in the world.
Like how
That they have. It's a
that
kind of
much
a
power.
charisma. Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
charisma of getting people to follow. That kind of
yeah,
leadership is, they don't go and do things themselves. They get people to follow and follow instructions and do for them.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. And that's like going back to being the wholeness of who we are. That we
Yeah,
don't need to follow anything, and
exactly.
our compass is in ourselves to
Yeah.
tell us what we should, what's right for ourselves, and not following. So anyway, he used to write these Mo letters or these GNs were good news. These were only followers would read. Would nobody outside would read this.
Hmm.
And some of the letters they would have would be called "Backslider Beware." So people would be afraid to backslide. Or another one
The wrath
was
of God. Yes.
yeah, it's just like the only fear,
Yes.
fear,
Yes. Fear
and
sells. Fear controls.
yeah, unfortunately, yeah. If there's anything that we can do is free ourselves from the fears for sure.
Mm.
And the other one was sensitivity. It was about sensitivity, and I was probably I don't say the most. I haven't met every other person, but I was like one of the most emotional sensitive people
Hmm.
in there. And it talks about sensitivity was pride, and pride was from the devil. And so, oh my God, the torture I felt inside of
All
myself, that
right.
I was not comfortable within myself because of my sensitivity. So just showing about how we were not allowed to feel, how
Mm.
suppressed our feelings were.
Yeah, no permission to be. I mean, everybody in life has been seeking a permission to be themselves. And the thing is, we don't
Yeah,
need permission from anyone to be ourselves.
yeah,
It's expected of us to find ourselves and bring ourselves forth.
Yeah,
We
and
don't
I
need
can
anyone's permission of that.
absolutely.
Right.
Yeah,
But if this is where, these leaders, whether a cult or, a religion or, a dictatorship, they they step people into fear, and they can't do anything without permission. And
yeah.
that's how they have that
That's what's
control.
happening. Yeah, that where our society is right now. I know it
Yes.
was a big learning lesson. Not a few years ago was I was connected with my family, and we had a major issues. And I don't want to talk about that because that's my family's personal things and
Yeah.
my personal things. But the lesson from it was so profound that it took me about 3.5 years of very intense pain trying to figure out my relationship with my family, my siblings especially, because yeah, there was a lot of conflicts or problems with our family, and I didn't know what it was. And of course, I wanted to be the best sister I could be. I wanted to be the best, and I wanted them to love me, and all these
Yeah.
things from it. And it took me about 2.5, 3 years to really understand. Maybe it was a little longer. I can't remember the whole time frame of what it was, but I had to realize that I cannot please anybody.
No. No.
I can love others.
Yes.
I can do my best to love, but I cannot please someone.
No.
And that's exactly what you're talking about. We
Yeah.
have to be our own authentic self.
Yes.
And that was a tough journey at learning that one.
Yeah.
When
I
you get
mean,
your
for
family involved.
anybody, well, for everyone, because who do we look for approval from first? Our family, because
family,
that
yes,
we grew up
because
with,
you're born into that environment.
and this
Yeah,
is why we when there's divorce in the family, a lot of kids will take it on as their fault because it must have been something they did that caused
yeah.
mum and dad to break up, because kids are constantly looking for approval, for validation.
And they're
Good
super
girl, good
sensitive of
boy.
what's going on with
Yeah.
family too. Yeah.
Yes. And so, it's, we look to that family, then what comes next? It's the teachers, our peers. And then if we are part of a church, and then we look to the church leaders' approval. And so, outside of permission, what are we looking for next? Approval. Right?
Yeah, yeah. I had to learn that. It would say the hard way, and it's something that was very intense and very painful. But at the time, the learning from it was so worth it. Like
Yeah.
any difficult thing that we go through, nobody wants to go through the pain that we go through. But they say like wisdom isn't given to someone.
No.
Wisdom is our experience.
Yes. Yeah.
And
You can have the knowledge, anybody can have the knowledge, but the wisdom is to know how to use that knowledge.
yeah, and
Right?
we do that from our experiences of
Yes.
what we go through and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
that's
anyways,
what
it was
life is about, going through the experiences. Be
yeah.
willing to take, the hiccups and sometimes the flattening on your backside, the cosmic 2x4s. But it's
Yeah.
how to get back up again, and there is always
Yeah.
something to learn from it. And
Oh my God,
you
it
know,
was definitely a 2x4 for sure what I went through. but it's so worth it. It's
yeah,
so worth it.
mm,
Like people want. What is power? The
mm,
power is going within ourselves, and that is finding the joy, the peace, the love that we have within ourselves. But we can't do that until we realize that it's not
yeah,
outside.
right. And
Yeah.
free will, choice. People who don't make choices have just made a choice. They've made a choice
Mm-hmm.
not to make a choice. And we don't always get to choose what's thrown at us, but we do
Mm-hmm.
have a choice, and whether we catch it or what we do with it. And I think that's something to understand. The power of our individuality and our free will is in our choices.
Yes.
And people
Yeah, for
may
sure.
suppress us in some way, but we have the choice of what goes on in our mind and in our hearts, even if we can't
Yeah.
physically do something at the time.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But that is something we have to earn in a way, isn't it? It's not, oh, you've got to earn the brownie points, but earn it in the way that
Mm-hmm.
you may know the knowledge. Somebody's told you this knowledge. You've painted by numbers this knowledge. But again, until you had some experiences, you don't truly understand what this knowledge means. And that
Or
is
you have to
wisdom.
experience it.
Yes.
Like sometimes I'll have some experience with something of so-called wisdom, but I give it to somebody else, And sometimes they'll just like really get it, but other times it's like, no, I don't know. And then 2, 3 years, all of a sudden it's their turn and it comes, and
Yes.
all of a sudden they get their own wisdom.
Yeah.
And that's the way it should be, because nobody should tell people how it should be done. They're supposed to be able to, experience it on
Yeah.
their own,
You
find
know,
the wisdom
whatever
within
knowledge you're
themselves.
giving them is something they put in their backpack to take on their journey. And then somewhere along the line, somebody was talking to me about that. Pull it out of the backpack. This is where I could apply this knowledge. you know
Uh-huh.
so
Yeah.
you give the knowledge and you plant the seeds, but how they grow and
Yeah.
when they grow is up to the person.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's what's so beautiful about real freedom, is that
Yeah.
people experience it on their own and not being forced into it,
Yeah. Oh,
shoved
this
down
this
their throat.
yeah, exactly. This whole thing is that we've got to fix people. We look at society as if they're already broken, where what it is, the system is broken. We're not broken. We're just living in a broken society. And, that is what we're trying to live with. We ourselves are kind of born, pure and abundant and
Mhm.
beautiful. And then we're trying to fit into a system that's broken. And
I
you
know, like,
had misery and you had despair and everything because you knew this wasn't your system.
yeah. Well, I mean, like the NLP, neuro linguistic programming. One of the things they have a few different models of things that people that you go by with learning, and one of the things is nobody is broken.
Right.
And the reason why is because every person, who, like, maybe they do something that's wrong in the eyes of the world, or another person, or no matter what happens, they're making the best choice of what makes sense to them in the mindset of how they were conditioned
Yeah.
or in their environment.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it's right what they're doing. It's just to understand that nobody is broken. They're making the best choice at what makes sense to them in their environment.
In that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
And to be able
hindsight is
to,
2020. How many things do we look back on and go, oh God, if I'd known better, I
yeah,
wouldn't have done that.
yeah,
All right. But that's
yeah,
what is life about. It's about learning and to be able to look back and go, okay, no, that wasn't a right move. I know better now, but not to beat yourself up because you made a bad choice with what you knew at
yeah.
the time. Right.
Yeah, to be able to, even to shift or to change,
Yeah.
we have to accept and acknowledge the past that we've had before we can change that.
Yes.
So yeah.
And don't persecute yourself over it, and oh, why did I do that? Because that's all you knew at the time.
Yeah.
And if you're always in exploration and self-discovery, then you're always looking to know how to do things better, how to be more, how to give more. And that's what the journey of life is about. It's about learning. And one thing that humans are very, very good at doing is judgment, casting the first stone. And quite honestly, is there anybody that can cast a stone that doesn't boomerang back on them in
I
some
agree
way?
100%, 100% with that. It's so easy to look at somebody else of their problems, but we have to first look at ourselves.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
and the more we heal ourselves, the better we can see somebody. Yeah, I remember when I just left the cult, like all I could see is these people are hurting me.
Yeah.
They're mean, they're hurting me. And as I began to heal, then I said, oh, I see them suffering.
Yes. And they don't even know
Wow,
it.
they're feeling what they're feeling. And then you go even more, and then you just love, and you say, well, I don't want to be part of that, but
Right.
you just want to love because of what they're going through. So it's all part of the
Yeah.
process of,
Yeah. And as you said, your whole family left. So clearly at some point their suffering got to a point where they couldn't go through it anymore. But, it's taking the horse to water. You can't make them drink, but leave them there long enough and they'll realize they're thirsty.
yeah. And I think, like, in anything that we're really, a belief that we hold on to that's for so long, it's really hard to change it.
Yes.
Even whether it's a cult,
Yeah.
whatever life we're in, there's things that we believe, like whether, a belief that, my father did this and this, or my sister, we hold on to what they say, and we
Right.
hold on to, I don't know if this makes any sense the way
Yeah.
I'm saying it.
Yeah. Well,
But
they're still holding on to the pain, of what
yeah, well,
was.
or it can be just a condition of it,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
so and so said so we hold on, and we don't know why we believe the way we believe,
Yeah.
but we do until we finally acknowledge it.
That's the thing. You have to acknowledge it, don't you? You have to go, is this somebody else's coat I'm wearing? you know,
Yeah.
because I'm feeling way down. Well, maybe I should take this coat off because this is not my belief. And, you know,
Yeah.
and then you start feeling, oh, gosh, freedom. I
Yeah.
can
For
carry on my
me,
shoulders what I want to carry.
yeah, for me, when I have a belief that I'm holding on to, what usually, I mean, it can all be different, but a lot of times I'll be in a position where I'm feeling something that doesn't, there's usually some sort of pain that's involved and
Yeah.
discomfort of some sort. And then when that discomfort comes, I just kind of like be be at peace with it. I just be there and let me feel what's happening. You know, what am I feeling inside? You know, what's happening? You know, and as I'm there, sometimes, a lot of times, it just will come up that the answer will come
Yeah.
up. Something happened recently where I was having discomfort of something, and so I was like, okay, all right, let me just, you know, hold tight and just let me see. Not hold tight like tight,
Yeah.
but be at peace with this and let me see what's coming up inside this. And lo and behold, you know, this you know, emotions of this, I wanted my freedom. There was a part of me that I felt like I was not free. And
Mm.
so I had to, you know, that was bringing this discomfort with things. There was resistance in life because, you know, there was a reason behind it. It's like, okay, what is it? Oh, I want my freedom, you know, probably because of my cult that I didn't have all that
Right.
freedom. So it's like
Mm.
super important to have my freedom, you know? So it's like, okay, so how can I give myself the freedom that I want? And that's what I had to go inside of me to find that freedom. Anyway, this is just an example, just in case if that encourages other people. I don't
You have to allow,
know. Mm-hmm.
right? You have to allow, you know, as I say, is our emotions are here to tell us. They're an indication of where you're at that moment, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's anger, joy, despair, depression, whatever it is. Why are you in that emotional state at the moment? And it's, don't run away from it. Have a look at it. What's causing it? And then allow yourself to go through the process so you can release it. So,
There's
you know,
no
tap into your
resistance. There's no
emotions. Yeah,
resistance. Yeah.
yeah, tap into your emotions, but don't become
Mm-hmm.
emotional about them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because when we get stuck on an emotion, we blow it up bigger than what it was there to tell us in the first place.
Yeah. Well, the reason, like, we don't want to um, put the mind involved.
Right.
The feelings are important. You have to feel the
Yes.
feelings because you can't. If you don't feel it, you're not going to heal it.
No.
You have,
100%.
yeah. So just don't get the mind involved. Like, oh yeah, he did this and this, and
Mm-mm.
that's why it is. And
Yeah.
oh, she did it that. No. Just,
Yeah.
you know, or how they did this and the boss did that, or whatever it is. Just let it go. Let go of the thought,
Yeah.
and just go into the feelings and just feel what's happening. Like, okay, what's going on? What am I feeling in there? You know, and that's where, you know, usually there'll be some kind of information that will direct us.
And this is the path that you've taken, is helping people acknowledge their feelings, you know, feel them from
Yeah.
the soul, the heart, and the spirit, and not the head. You know, I call it the
Yeah.
knowingness. The head will know what it needs to know when it needs to know it, but you've got to listen
Yeah.
to, you know, the
Yeah.
heart and soul and the spirit's feelings. So this is the path that you've taken. Do you think you would have
Yeah.
taken this path had you not had the beginnings that you had?
What beginnings? Like what?
You
What do
know,
you
being
mean?
in the cult, of, you know, that whole suppression of not
Oh, I
knowing
don't
joy.
know. I don't know, but this journey, it's been a long journey. Like, you know, from when my first, like, the beginning of, like, okay, God, I don't know what to do. Help! I can't do this anymore.
Mhm.
To where I am now, and it's taken me, like, just only a few years have I really been understanding about opening the heart. I mean,
Mm.
just recently, because a few years. And then before, it's like, okay, I feel,
Yeah.
but I didn't really know what was really happening, you
Yeah.
know, and where you're comfortable. You have to really feel comfortable in your own skin to be able to be in that space of from the heart.
Yes. And lead from the heart, you know, because a lot of people will go, oh, yeah, but I'll be vulnerable. But that's the thing is, if you're comfortable in your vulnerability,
Mm-hmm.
you don't need to be so guarded.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And it's still a journey for me with
Yes.
that,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
like I could see, like, wow, how much I'm so much more open than where I was,
Yeah.
but I still know that I have more to just really just surrender and just let.
I don't think people realize that actually the heart is what it's all about. Stepping
Yeah.
into heart, coming from the heart. It's not about, you know, falling in love with a person or I love my job. It's about the love of life. It's
Mm-hmm.
about the love and the gratitude of what life gives you. It's being
Yeah.
ignited from the heart and seeing everything from the heart. And that's where we talked about before, the peace and the truth is.
Yeah.
It's when we
Yeah.
see it from the heart, we see it, and not from the mind, because the mind will
The
always
mind.
find
Yeah.
lack, but the
Yeah.
heart will always find abundance.
Yeah. That's it is a journey with that for sure. I mean, like I've seen so much how much I've changed as the years go by with it, but to this day, I still know that there's moments where I'm still in lack, and then there's other times
Mm.
that I'm in abundance.
Yeah.
Where I just feel the wholeness. So it's part of the process of it. Yeah, but
Yeah.
absolutely, to be able to be in the space that I am one with the universe and not to
Mm.
worry about anything.
I
But
mean, that's where
then
the
there's
true
peace
truth
just
is.
as you come, and then you have to kind of like
Yeah.
say it again.
That's where the truth is.
Yeah, yeah. It's a process, but I
Mm.
agree with you. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And the thing is we are so conditioned as human beings to be afraid, and that's in our DNA because, in the past there was a lot to be afraid of, and of course right now we're in this whole COVID thing, and so there's a lot of fear going on around, whether it's economic or whether it's health, what's going to happen to society, in this change. And the thing is, sensibility and concern is what needs to come up here. Be sensible, the washing your hands, the distance, the the mindfulness. But also, if we buy into the fear and the hysteria, we're going to weaken our immune system, and we're going to start threatening the heart. And instead, if we step into heart and exude that love out to everyone, that vibration is what's going to reach other people, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it also can be helpful just to stay away from TV as much as
Yes,
possible.
yes,
because
yes.
because it doesn't say anything. Once in a while, we get little tidbits of something positive, but usually it's just all negative, and then we become in that environment of negativity as
Yeah,
well,
and we know that
ourselves.
it does weaken the immune system. This is the people that are vulnerable. Why do cult leaders have so much power? Is because they know how to step in to making people afraid if
Yeah,
they don't
that
obey.
makes sense totally because
Right,
everything he did, he used fear. Yeah,
right. And so right now, if we buy into the fear of COVID instead of like, this is a global pandemic, we're all in this together, be sensible, use your common
yeah,
sense, be respectful, we will get through this. But if we buy into the hysteria of the fear, then who are we giving our power up to?
yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. Um, this I do see a lot of fear out there, and I hear people say things like that. I don't personally watch TV with it, but if there was anything that I could share for myself and the world, is just to live. It's hard to say to be fearless because it's a lot of work to be fearless. People say, oh, I'm fearless, but I'm going to tell you, it's work to be fear free of fear. But if we can work through that and can realize, wait a minute, this is fear. I realize this is fear. I don't have to. I don't acknowledge this. I'm not going to buy into this. Yeah, I understand. Death has happened. Situations happen, but not to live in the fear. And
Mm.
also, as we're in a place of love, in a space of love, I think we can make better decisions with it as well. Like if you're in a position where something's scary and unsure of how to handle a situation, being in the fear base, it's hard to get any clarity with it. But when we're in a space of love, we can get a better, clear understanding of how to handle a situation.
And there's the fear, which is also the common sense.
Mm-hmm.
Don't go up to somebody and cough or have them cough on you, right? That's the common sense. It's the artificial fear that we don't want people to buy into.
Yeah.
Because that's,
Absolutely.
how people get the one up on people is through the artificial fear. It always amazes me how you can have a crowd of people and there's one person telling them this and that and putting the fear in them. But if everybody stepped into their own heart, they'd be
Mm-hmm.
going, what are you trying to sell here? Because I'm not buying. But,
Yeah.
one perfect conductor of fear can press that
Mm-hmm.
fear button in all of us. This is where we have to be mindful and heartful
Yeah.
of,
Mm-hmm.
you're not switching on my fear.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. It's definitely a process for that, but yeah, the more we can work through that, the more we can let go of the fears. I think if people were to realize, and people who've been on a journey for a long time, maybe they don't have as much fear,
Mm.
But people who have not been on the journey much, it'll be very noticeable. And I don't mean as a judgment with it. I
Yeah,
don't
no,
want the
it's
person to
process.
process that way.
It's their
Yeah,
process.
but yeah, but because they haven't, all they'll see is the fear of the outside world, and it's not necessary. If all of a sudden, if there was a tiger was right there, there is this fight and flight, fight or
Yeah,
flight. That's the first reaction. That is the
sensible
um,
fear.
yeah. Well, it's not even. You don't even think about. This should not happen. That not like that. It's an instinct, an
Yeah,
immediate instinct. How am I going to get out of the way so this tiger's not going to bite me?
yeah.
That's all you're thinking. You're not analyzing who's right, who's wrong, how it should be. This is where that. You don't have time to think about that.
Yes, yes.
So it's not even you call it fight or flight, but it's not even the same kind of fear. It's just instincts
And
that
common
we
sense
have to
again,
have.
right? If I
Yeah,
stay on this path, I could get eaten.
yeah, and everything else we have to let it go and just think like, oh,
But why
okay,
do we not use that in our daily lives? Why do we
because we
allow
use the
people to
head.
have such control? Right, exactly,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. So for me, it's always about feel your knowledge. Don't think
Mm-hmm.
your knowledge.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that could work. It's also you can just from the heart, whatever works for somebody.
Yeah, well, the feeling is coming
Feel
from the
the
heart, the
yeah. I
soul, and the
mean,
spirit. When
everybody
you
has
feel
to
it, you
find their
feel the,
way with yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's, the thing is, you came from a physical cult and you had to, in your own self-discovery, discover what life meant to you. And it's been a long journey, but where you are today is at peace with your own heart and your own decision
Yeah,
making. So, but whether people are coming from a cult or not, they've got to understand that there's a lot of cultish behavior out there, either
absolutely.
in religions, in programming, in society's dictation, in
Political
political
parties
dictation.
is
Yeah,
one
yeah,
too.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
we've all got something that we need to leave. And
What
it's,
one of the things in the cult is that you have this, even though it was very fear based, it was a mentality of like, oh, we what we know is more important, was more right than somebody else.
yes.
That's a fear base. That's an ego fear base to think
Hmm.
like, oh, what I know is better than somebody else. And that can be used with anything, whether it's religion, whether it's politics, whether it's another country, whatever it is, to think that we're better. And that is also a fear base because we're afraid of seeing ourselves.
Yes, yes. When we, as I said, when we're comfortable with our own vulnerability, when we
Mm-hmm.
stop looking at perfection, what is perfection?
Mm-hmm.
I think perfection is people's imperfection, is what makes them unique. And
Mm-hmm.
what is perfect? It's somebody's perception of what is perfect for them. The other person's looking at it from a different angle and doesn't see the same perfection you see. So,
Mm-hmm.
this word perfection is also something
Mm-hmm.
blown out of proportion. And this normal, what is normal? And everybody
And go
tries to,
beating somebody else up because you
yeah,
think that I'm more right than
yeah,
somebody
yeah,
else.
yeah. And no, that ain't normal. It's
Yeah.
Neanderthal. It's caveman
Mm-hmm.
boink on your head. It's
Cult. It's a cult. I'm
yeah,
better than you. It's
yeah,
probably
exactly, exactly. And if you think about it, the cultish behavior has been around right since the caveman era. We've always wanted to
maybe I
belong.
wasn't. I don't remember being there, but it's
Well,
possible.
the thing, but look at history. We love packs. We love to be a part of a pack. That's part of
Mm-hmm.
the animal instinct, survival in the pack. One
Mm-hmm.
person taking that leadership role and leading the pack. We've always been that because we haven't been encouraged as a human race to think for ourselves. I think it's only
Mm-hmm.
now in this era that we're saying to people, please think for yourself. Please feel
Yeah.
for yourself. Don't
And
follow
not to
what
judge
everybody else.
someone if it's
Yeah,
different.
exactly. And
Yeah.
don't believe everything you see on the social media or the news.
Mm-hmm.
There's always a smidgen of truth, but how much is it being blown up? The CNN effect is take a pimple and make it into a volcanic eruption. If you're buying the eruption,
For
before
sure.
you know the
Yeah.
facts. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think a great deal of what we're seeing now, we've seen the finger pointing for so long, blame, shame, everything else, but there's three fingers coming back on you.
Mm-hmm.
And so the accountability of your life is in your hands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Another thing that was a really cool. I totally agree with you. I just something came in my mind that I thought might be useful and helpful. Um, Eckhart Tolle, he did a spoke for about 10 minutes about something right after the coronavirus and all this big fear was going on, and he shared something that thought was very useful and really helpful. And he goes, I don't know. He said, I don't always read the Bible, but I'm going to tell you a story in the Bible today because I think this is very useful and really helpful. Please forgive me if I'm sharing this in his words because it's not exactly like it, but the
Right.
message he sent. And he gave the story, he shared the story of the house on the rock and the house on the sand. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. He goes, that they built a house on the sand, and when the storm came, everything couldn't stand on its own. It fell. And so the story of building on a rock, that when a good foundation, and that when anytime that there's a story in the Bible, a parable from Jesus, that when the storms come, it has a great foundation and it doesn't fall. And he says that this is our consciousness. If we are working on our consciousness, that when this issue happens, we're not going to be afraid and scared and be falling apart in the situation. But if we don't have a foundations of who we really are, and the foundations of consciousness within ourselves, we are going to be falling apart in these difficult times. And I just thought of sharing it. I thought it was a really useful thing he shared.
Yeah, I completely agree. I kind of look at it as the matrix of the forest. I'm this willow tree in the forest, and through my years I have rooted deeply, which reaches out to all the other roots in the forest as well. My trunk has grown sturdy through the years, and I have many, many branches, but they're flexible to blow in the wind. And because of that, I won't get blown over. So, and that's what experience in age and willing to participate in life and explore comes from the deeper
and
roots.
Healing and working through our stuff, really working through our stuff to find out who we really are. So when the storms do come, we can handle it.
Yes. It's okay to get blown about, but if you're, if the core is strong, all it is a good cobweb cleaning, and the wind blowing through. But we're constantly reaching up instead of rooting down, right? So those roots come in that, as you said, in that consciousness, in the matrix of life, with us rooting with other divine, beautiful presences, and rooting with that, and realizing it doesn't matter if we are standing alone. Our roots show us we're never alone.
Yeah, exactly. We're all one with the cosmos, the consciousness, God, the universe.
I mean, you look at the trees in the forest; they're all different trees. That thin, ugly, dying, old, fallen over, new, but they're all considered extremely important to the forest. And so if we look at ourselves as part of those trees in the forest, our standing alone on our own is what we're meant to do, to raise up towards the light. But we're never alone because we're protected by the other trees, and we've got the roots and the foundations and the matrix there.
It's a great analogy. And I think it's a great idea too, like the more we realize that we are all one and connected, that we can handle the situations better. What the fear is me, mine, my own, taking it myself,
Yes. And that is the unworthiness, I'm not worthy, I'm not this, I'm not that. There again, it goes back to the human judgment of, you can only have if you're worthy, you're only important if you're this. And, if we take all of that and just throw it in the garbage, and go, even in my vulnerability, even in my youth, even in my rediscovery, I am worthy. Right?
Yeah. I hope anybody who's listening to this video will know this, or if they haven't known this, to work on understanding that they are worthy, that we are all worthy, we are all one, we are all whole, and it's our job to find all that. within ourselves.
Exactly. And I always say the best teachers are those that have gone through it. And I know that your work is, the NLP and also the AFT, emotional freedom technique. You're a masseuse as well, which obviously at the present moment you're
Hypnosis,
not
yeah.
hands-on,
And hypnosis too, yeah.
Right. And so, you're also looking, when we get back to kind of life again, having retreats in Costa Rica. But what are you doing right now, and how can people reach out to you at the present moment, in their own phase of discovery?
I guess the best way they can find me is on Facebook. I have a page that I have not, I have been neglecting. Please forgive anybody who I've been neglecting my page, but I do have it still, and it's from the title of my book. The title of my book is called Inner Course. I'm saying quiet, slowly separate those. That's not one word. Inner Course, the journey of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's also the name of my page. My, what do they call it? Page?
Yeah, Facebook page.
Facebook page. Yeah, so it's you can find me at Inner Course. And then I also have one on Costa Rica hypnosis. They can find me there. And I think I'm also on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
LinkedIn is under which name?
Rebecca Joy Hypnosis.
Right.
I believe so.
So people can reach out to you right now and
Yeah.
just say, I'd like to just, know if we're fit, or, maybe just go through the NLP or the AFT or just a conversation,
or if they just want to share their story, or if they need, would like to get some ideas, or if they would like to get to know, hypnosis or NLP, or whatever they want. If they want to reach out to me, I'm definitely available.
And hypnosis is
my heart is to help the best
right.
I can.
Exactly. We know that you come from the heart, and that's for sure. And hypnosis is wonderful because, again, as you said, the old noggin gets in the way. And so the wonderful thing about hypnosis is that it transcends all that chatter, and it brings out what really needs to come out. So if people are willing to go through that, it's quite amazing what does come out. And in that discovery of, it's your blockage, and it's like you can face it now and not be afraid of it and clear it. And able to move on. And that's sometimes what we need to do, is that we're carrying stuff with us that sometimes we don't even know. It could be from a past life, and we just don't know we're carrying it with us, and we need to realize that and be able to release it.
If somebody has a lot of trauma, to begin the journey, it is very challenging, but very rewarding. I know my first few years, it was like I didn't know when it was gonna, like the torment. I won't say torment because it wasn't like, I don't know if that's the right word, torment, but it was very
tumultuous,
highs and lows, and like feeling like, wow, I have an epiphany for something, and then bam, hitting all these deep emotions of. So I know in the beginning it can be difficult, but it is so rewarding. And if you want to talk about, like, being an Olympic, athlete, they know they have to do their work to get to where they want to go to. You just have to. But the reward is amazing, to be able to go to these events and to, the top of the game. And I'm not saying like being at the top of the game, but for ourselves, to be top of the game in ourselves, to heal ourselves, to see ourselves, to know who we really are, is what it's really all about.
Yeah, it's not about the gold medal. It's about the medal you've won within yourself because you went and did it.
Perfect example.
Yeah. And your book, how do people find your book? What's the title of it?
You could find it on what's that place? Amazon. Amazon is the best place to find it.
And the title of the book?
Inner Course.
Inner Course by Rebecca Joy.
Rebecca Joy, yeah.
Excellent. And, that's a good place to start. We've got time on our hands right now, read the book and then reach out to you because, now your journey. And as I said, the best teachers are those that have been willing to go through life, because now, the tools, the skills and the wisdom that you share, whether people are ready to use it straight away, it's something that goes into their subconscious that's there for another day. And people can only go as fast as they're willing to go, or sometimes as they can go. But, having someone there, but you don't do it for them, but what you do is helping them gather the right wisdom and tools to use on their own journey of life.
Yeah, if there's anything to anybody, to somebody who's on this journey or wants to start their journey, is just to know that they are beautiful of who they are, and that they are loved. And it's so important that they find this inside of themselves, because people will fail, people will disappoint them, but the truth is to finding that they have all this within themselves. And it's not cliche, although it may sound cliche right now. But if people can actually, if they're in that journey, they've already been there or in that process, that is what it's all about, finding all this power within themselves. And I've been using this word power a little more recently, because I'm realizing that we think that power is like a powerful person or a powerful this. That's not what power is. And when a powerful, so-called powerful person goes out and has to use people and money to prove it, it's not power. It's a weakness. It's a weakness that they have to have these things to prove things for themselves. Whereas the real power is that nobody can shake it. Like, the rock, the house on the rock, it cannot be shaken. When somebody knows that the power of who they really are, it cannot be shaken. And anyway, just gonna share
as
that.
James Bond would say, you can stir it but don't shake it. And the willingness constantly to evolve. You never get to a point, okay, this is me now and that's it, I'm not going to evolve. You will always, daily experiences will always bring about some revelations or some more discoveries. And it's not, having to renew yourself all the time. It's just that lovely discovery of what else you can do and what else you really are. And I think that's what we all look for in life, the self-acceptance, the self-love. I am enough for me. And I bring forth me to you to share with, if it is to be.
If it works,
Yeah.
That's absolutely.
Yeah.
You got it, girl.
So, as I said, whether it's, literally coming from a cult, or whether we've just found our life being rather cultish in the way that it's being dictated, this is a time to break free. And, it's, as I said, the universe is here to shake us up, to wake us up, for us to step up and change it up. Well, that is on your individual life, because if you don't like what's going on in society, then change your own perspective, change your own life, and then bring that forth to society and be a part of that change. Don't wait for society to change, because you are part of that change, right? So should people get hold of you through LinkedIn and Facebook, or is that the best way?
Yeah, that's the best one. I haven't really gotten into the social media, enough. I haven't really got into it, but it is available, and I would love to, anybody who feels comfortable to communicate with me in any way. I feel honored, and I would love to communicate back.
Excellent. Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
And for taking the journey of realizing that it wasn't enough for you, and that you had to step out into the abyss of the unknown in faith and in trust. And in doing so, you had your falls, and you picked yourself back up, and you kept carrying on and kept discovering. And then as you discover, you turn around and share it with others. And that's truly wonderful. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Until next time, folks, remember, it's up to us what our life is about. If we're dissatisfied at the present moment with where our life is, if we feel that we've been dictated to, not spoken with, then this is time for change. And don't be afraid of the change. Yes, it's uncertain. We don't know what's out there, but that's part of the exploration of being a human being. Explore your options and be willing to trust and take that leap. Until next time. Bye for now. We hope you enjoyed the show. We look forward to bringing you more shows. Please go to selfdiscoverymedia.com/shows, and you will see the incredible lineup of genres and shows that we have for you. We are here to make a difference in your life. Thank you for listening.